So, a very good afternoon, Charterpreneurs of India. I'm Lakshya Chhabra, and I welcome you all to our new series called Startup Essentials. Thank you so much for joining us. So, a pitch deck is one of the most crucial presentations an entrepreneur prepares to showcase a startup idea across various platforms, right? So, today's session is going to be very exciting yet insightful, as the title suggests, Essentials of a Pitch Deck. And for the same, we have CA Chandrasekhar Kuperi, who is the founder of Anova Corporate Services, an advisory firm with focus on mergers and acquisitions. He has almost 2 decades of experience in various multinationals in diversified sectors like FMCG, life insurance, audit and assurance, and oil and gas sectors. He's an active angel investor in 30 plus startups across segments. Besides this, he has also invested in institutional angel funds, including Pi Ventures Fund 2, One Crowd, Ivy Cap, and Point One Capital. Now, without further ado, let's take this opportunity to briefly know about Mr. Shekhar, his journey as a chartered accountant, as well as an active investor in startups. And also, let's understand the essentials of a pitch deck and various factors to be considered while raising funds for us. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Lakshay. First of all, a very, very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining on a Sunday afternoon. I should definitely thank Lakshay as well as, the Charterpreneur team for inviting me. And nothing, like a great happiness, meeting, your fellow comrades, right? I mean, you're all, doing your CA or professional courses. So it's always a great happiness to meet, your fellow comrades. Let me quickly, introduce what I've done so far. So in terms of my career, I started with ExxonMobil. From there, I moved to KPMG. And my last stint was with the Yardley of London. I was based in UK. And we had extensive operation both in Europe and North America. But then we spread into the GCC region. I wouldn't use the word Middle East. So we were in GCC. And then from there, we also expanded into India and very selective market in West Africa. So strangely, we were never in China, but of course we were there in some of the Far East like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines. So I spent a good 10 years with them. I was a group FD. So that gave me the opportunity even to understand what's happening with the various subsidiaries across the region. But more importantly, I was also into M&A. So I was doing a lot of transactions, did almost 11 acquisitions, 4 divestments. And probably that's what gave the confidence for me to start Anova. So Anova is an advisory firm and our focus is on M&A and fundraise. We actively work with MSMEs as well as with the startups. And basically, we do end-to-end M&A service. What I mean by that is, right from selecting the target, ensuring, that there's a non-binding offer, doing the due diligence. Sometimes if it's on the vendor side, ensuring, that we are able to prepare the seller. So that's what we do. So that's been 7+ years of my journey as an entrepreneur. So you're on the right hands when we discuss about pitch deck. And prior to that, I was an employee for almost close to 2 decades. So without further ado, let me get into this topic because this topic I'm sure would resonate with many of you. But more importantly, I think it's important that I would also like to share my learnings. It's not as if that I know it all, because I've been as an entrepreneur dealing with a lot of early stage enterprises. I'm here to share my learnings also. So I think it'll be good for us to converse as we progress at the end of the session. So feel free to shoot your questions. At the end of the session, I would love to address your questions. So let me quickly get started. So this topic is all about how do we package the idea and present them to the investor. As simple as that. It's all about packaging. It's all about showcasing how well you understand the idea that you have in the mind and how well you believe that you have that execution capability. So let's define what's a pitch deck. To me, a pitch deck is nothing but a brief presentation. Remember what I'm saying? It's a brief. I never said presentation. It's a brief presentation, which gives you an overview of the business. Again, I'm using the word overview. And what is the intent? The intent is to present an idea that intrigues the investors, gets them to engage with you if you are the startup. That's the whole idea. Can it create that curiosity? Can it create, that intensity within them to say that, okay, I need to speak with these founders. That's why, we always say that you always need to have a compelling story as you discuss your business, which means you need to showcase your product or service, your business model, the monetization strategy. You got to introduce your team also. Those are the elements, that are there in a pitch deck. So a pitch deck is just the first rung on the ladder. So I'm still staying on this slide because I'm still discussing with you, how do you package this? So remember, the audience is your hero. We are not. If we are a startup, if we are the entrepreneurs, the audience, they are the hero. So who are we then? We are the guide. We are like the Sherpa. Because our job is to enlighten. Our job is not to overwhelm the audience. Because many a times I've seen entrepreneurs getting super excited and carried away that they want to give so much that they know about the business, by which, we only overwhelm the investors. So as a good presenter, because pitch deck is all about presentation, we'll have to ensure that we are feeding the information to the audience bit by bit, breaking it into logical chunks and building the case in a very methodical approach. So when we make the pitch deck, it's like, let's think like the chapters of a book, where the words and the visuals, they all come up mainly to guide the audience through the narrative. And what is important about a pitch deck is it has to be simple. Look at this example, YouTube, as simple as that, broadcast yourself. We always use this phrase called KISS. I'm sure some of you know this. Let me explain what it is before you think something else. It stands for keep it short and straightforward. Keep it short and straightforward. The more candid you are, the more sincere you are, the more genuine you are. Oh, trust me, that's what the investor loves. Let's look at another example. The other example is Airbnb. Look at, how in very simple way they are saying, book rooms with locals rather than hotels. This is my favorite, Quora. What would happen if Yahoo Answers and Facebook got together and had a super smart, super curious baby? Friends, what I'm saying is that the whole objective of a pitch deck is to keep your slides simple. We're not here to give, some hard facts and hit them hard. We are here to create a curiosity in the minds of the investors. When Lakshay introduced me, he said, I've invested in more than 30 plus startups. One of the bigger aspects I always look at is how well the founder or the founding team is explaining to me their story, their journey, and explaining more in their own words, their own experiences, rather than presenting so many slides to me. So what is it that we're going to discuss today? We're going to discuss a framework. It's called Persistent. Before I move ahead, does anybody know about this framework? If you know, you can unmute yourself and say if you know. If you don't know, you don't have to unmute yourself. I'll understand that you don't know. Anybody has heard of this framework called Persistent? Okay, nobody has unmuted, so I guess you're not aware of. I'm going to use this as the basis today to discuss a pitch deck. And the reason being, I picked this from a book. And I'm going to share what that book detail is also. But I thought it was absolutely fascinating to know that a startup is all about being persistent. I keep telling this mantra to myself that Shekhar, if you are persevering, if you have the faith, if you have the ability, to show the, that you are persistent, oh, trust me, things will happen naturally. So I think it's very important now to understand that we have to be persistent when it comes to the startup world. But I'm glad that I'm able to share you an acronym called Persistent as a framework to even prepare the pitch deck. But now I'm going to tell you something which is going to be counterintuitive. So don't, log off and move away from me. Just listen to me carefully. The goal of your pitch deck is not to raise money, doston. I'll repeat that. The goal of your pitch deck is not to raise money. So then you'll ask me, what's the real goal? The real goal of your pitch deck is to get to the next meeting. As you're presenting to the investors, your only objective is, can you make them curious? Can you spark that interest in them so that you're able to get more questions from them? You're able to address the questions. Here is where you're gauging the wavelength. How well that investor and you both are well suited to do that deal. Because to me, any investment is, if I have to use this parallel word, it's like a marriage. Because your rishta, it's not like 6 months, one year. It's like almost a minimum 2 years se lekar kabhi 5 to 8 years bhi jata hai. So I call something called compatibility factor. I don't know whether there's something called compatibility factor in marriage as a startup, but I'm sure, a lot of this Jyotish, horoscope they dekhte hai. Similarly, dosto, in the world of pitch deck, as you're presenting to the investors, having the right set is very, very important. That's the key to success. And therefore, I always say that investments are rarely made just in one meeting. Rarely, dosto. So never get carried away because there are so many platforms, so many investors. It's easy for us to pitch to them and then think, that we can succeed there. To me, I think the relationship, understanding who is on the other side is very, very important. So this is a book, dosto. It's called Funding Your Startup and Other Nightmares. Look at the name of the book. And I love this book because it's a book which is very conversational style. More important, there are a lot of anecdotes written by Dr. Dhruv Nath and Mr. Sushanto Mitra. And the interesting part is, there is a foreword by Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, the great Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani. Okay, I mean, as you know, he had also invested early in Zomato, made his money too. And of course, Mr. Deep Kalra, who is again a well-known name out there. So what is this persistent? This is what you'll have to remember as an acronym: problem, earnings model, risks, size of the market, innovation, scalability, team, entry barrier, and of course, niche and traction. So this is what persistence stands for. So I'm going to quickly discuss how a pitch deck is done using this framework. So let's come to the very first one, which is called as the problem. And as I said at the beginning, it's all about story. Now, when I say story, dosto, it's a real story. It's a believable story. It's a relatable story, not a filmed story. Okay. It's not a filmy dunya. It's all about you, your business. Why am I saying this? Young startups like you, if you have a startup or you're aspiring to be an entrepreneur, or trust me, young startups, they lack a history of proof because you have just begun. There is no proof. But then you have plenty of purpose. You have plenty of aspiration. You have plenty of hope. You have plenty of faith. So how do you demonstrate that? Only in the form of a story, because the story is about the opportunities, about the resource requirement. It's about the market forces, growth, milestone, profits. And trust me, as you're conveying the story with all this, you'll also be able to get closer to the valuation that you want. But as I said, the story has to be real. It has to be relatable. What I'm saying is how well you tell it, how well you sell it, your passion, your authenticity will make huge difference. Why? Because stories, they target both the head and the gut. To me, stories convey the why. Why and how the founders started the journey. What was the purpose? What was that significant reason for them even to venture into this and not, go to the cushy corporate world, which anyway your CA or the other, courses give you. I always tell the entrepreneurs in the startup world that when your why is big enough, trust me, you will find your how. I always tell them when your why becomes clear, your how becomes easy. And therefore, if you have a significant purpose, something that you truly, truly believe in, trust me, the execution becomes much more easier. And stories have a very high impact in little time. For example, whenever somebody shares small anecdotes quickly, it creates a huge impact. So start with the story, but then most important is this, dosto. We always call something called as a PS fit, the problem solution fit. And what I mean by this is, you'll have to first understand, is there a problem and is the problem large? So when I say large, it has to be popular, it has to be growing. Kuch to urgent hona chahiye. It must be expensive. Therefore, you're able to solve it with a much more affordable. Probably the government has, is making it mandatory, and therefore the problem needs to be solved, and you are coming with a solution. Or probably the frequency is so huge, itna bore lag raha hai. So you want to come up with a solution. For example, in my days, okay, you guys are pretty young. In my days, we used to hail a taxi. We used to stop it with our hand, or then we had fast track. Number, dial karna padega. But now, thanks to the world of apps here, the Olas and Ubers, how, effective they are making it. What I'm saying, dosto, is that try to find out what is the frustration for the customer. What is really broken? And therefore, what are you going to fix? Why should your product or service exist, therefore? More importantly, dosto, if you look at this opportunity, can you also look at what is a real botheration for the customer and how your opportunity is going to help them get over it? And if I have to make one important statement for you to really remember, that statement is, a problem well defined is a problem half solved. So this slide is all about trying to understand, do you truly understand the problem? Can you focus on the why in terms of why that problem is so important? Can you bring your personal connection, personal experiences to even explain what was the motivation for you to start that startup because you personally had that issues? So the request is, like you'll have to basically ask these questions for yourself. Very, very important questions. What problem are you attacking? What led you to that problem? Any key insights that you had and therefore you want to tackle that issue? That's why I said, if you have personal experiences, never ever hesitate to add that. The fourth question is very, very important, dosto. Why doesn't the existing solution work? Because many startups, they fail to do a proper judgment on this. They believe they are better. I'm not denying that. As a startup, as a founder, I know you will always believe that your product, your service is better, but you will have to understand what the competition is, how good they are, and then make that decision in terms of why you're better than them. The last question is very, very important, dosto. Who is feeling the pain point? How do you know? Because many a times we think that our product is great, our service is great. How do you know unless you get a customer feedback? For example, Charterpreneur is trying to ensure that they build this community, a social community. How will you know this community will work unless you get the feedback? Unless you say that somebody is having a pain point and your community is going to help them become better. Very, very important questions, dosto. And therefore, I always say that a startup idea is about a problem, and then you come up with a solution along with an insight. Because to me, this is the first curation to understand whether the business model that you have created can be faster, cheaper, and better. Remember these three words. It's a very, very common word for investor world. Faster, better, cheaper. And why are we saying these three words? Because these three words actually resonate whether that business or startup can be scalable or not. Very, very important. So let me give some examples quickly just to explain this point. So we saw about Airbnb. This is the problem that they saw. The price, it's not very clear. Sometimes it becomes a concern for customers. It's a very, very sensitive area because most of us are price sensitive. Hotels probably are disconnected from a culture angle too, which is a fact. Because if you go to hotels, stay in the hotels, I've done it a lot. It becomes too boring here. For example, if I go, for a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, trip, kabhi-kabhi ye weekend jab aata hai, kya karna bhi samajh mein nahi aata yaar. Because hotel is more like a bed and breakfast, even if it's a 5-star. And then more importantly, dosto, if you actually see booking, a room, is not that, easy when it comes to the local sort of population. This is the problem that Airbnb saw. Let's come to another example. This is Quora. So Quora is all about, getting the answers. You simply post the questions, knowledgeable kids and guys like you, even, post some brilliant answers. A great platform, dosto. What is the problem Quora saw? There's a scattered knowledge with varying quality. The quality differs a lot. That's what they saw in the other platforms. There are more questions and answers are not that significant. And then third, no good way to ask friends or experts. And therefore, the other platforms were not helpful. Let's take one more example before understanding how they were solving. This is your YouTube. YouTube, what problems they saw? Some of the video files, they were too large even to email. So that was like a hiccup. So therefore, it was difficult to host them also because of the size. No standardization of the format. And sometimes it were very isolated. What is isolated? You have taken a video, but was sirf, few, people could only access it. It was only with a limited, set of people. It was not available to a large community or large set of people. Why am I discussing these examples? Only to tell you, how do you come up with even your solution, dosto? So we discussed about the problem, the importance of problem. It has to be large, popular, something you see, is very, very significant. But the solution again is very important. What is that unmet need that you think you're solving? If you have a product or service or a technology, is that revolutionary? Is that disruptive? Is that valuable? Is that differentiated? Or is it merely evolutionary? What we call as product market fit. Remember in the problem, I said problem, solution, fit. Now I'm coming to something called product, market, fit. And remember the words I'm using. Is it revolutionary? Is it disruptive? Is it valuable? Is it differentiated? So those, I'm not saying that every time you have to be disruptive. As a startup, if you can even show that you're highly differentiated in terms of your value proposition, well, that's brilliant. Because everybody can't come up with something called the blue ocean strategy. It's difficult. Many are going to be me too. When I say me too from a startup, not the other term, that came in the world of social media. What I mean is that, dosto, if you can come up with a differentiated value proposition to investors, that itself is a big thing. Example, you can be niche. What is niche? Limited in a segment, but probably extremely popular. We always say there is riches in niches. Probably you may have intellectual property, a significant intellectual property like probably a patent, probably a copyright which is very strong, and that becomes an entry barrier. And therefore, the solution part is about explaining how special you are, how unique you are. How will that improve the life of your customers? Because end of the day, dosto, customer is what you have to bear in mind. Steve Blank, who is considered guru of lean startup management, always says, startups fail not because they can't launch product. Startups fail because they can't find customers. So customer is very, very important. And therefore, the solution is all about demonstrating how defensible you are, how scalable you are, how sustainable you are. This word sustainability is used, in a much more bigger way these days. More importantly, do you have an efficient go-to-the-market strategy? What are your growth opportunities and channels? And therefore, how profitable you can be. Example, what Airbnb did. For the problem, this is the solution they said. They said, if you're traveling, if you're a traveler, you can save money because our platform gives easy connectivity to the host, whoever wants to host you. For the host, you can make money. And the third is very, very important, dosto. We are all trying to bring the culture, because in a normal hotel, it's very difficult to get into the culture. Of course, service may be great, but there's still lack of connectivity. Which means look at these 4 words, demonstrating the benefit. That's what they were doing. Simple to understand, no complication. They're able to correlate with the problem and give the solution. More importantly, not overloading details. That's why I say KISS. Keep it short and ensure that it is straightforward. Second example about Quora. Now, Quora said we are a social ask and answer platform, which means anybody can ask a question, follow up on the topic, can even answer. And users can access continuously relevant. Remember, the word continuously relevant. See, I like the choice of words about startups. Maja aata hai yaar, continuously relevant. Which means you're encouraging discovery, you're encouraging participation. If somebody has got a better answer, that better answer is appreciated, and therefore there is a quality content. It's created, it's ranked by who? Real humans, real time. That's the beauty about Quora. Look at how well they're able to come up with a solution. What about YouTube? We saw the problems, look at the solutions. Customers can upload the video. YouTube will take care of serving the content to millions of viewers. You don't have to. We will take care. That is what they said. Because they have this ability to encode, at the back end, it becomes a flash video, and that takes care of the huge size. And because they provide a community, that video could be sort of, broadcast to so many users. Look at the beauty of how, they're doing this. And therefore, what I'm trying to convey to you, dosto, is that whenever you want to have your startup, the first important aspect is to discover the problem, identify the problem, but more importantly, explain that solution. And when you're explaining the solution, ensure that you're explaining the solution which can hit the investor much more harder in terms of how you are unique, how you are special. A word of caution here. As I'm discussing this, do not assume now that you have to be too much detailed about your solution, because investors will do something called due diligence. They will not simply invest because aapne kaha. They will do the due. So my humble request is, show why you're unique, why you're special, but don't dwell into so much of details. It's important to communicate the why, but leave for the due diligence so that the investment can happen much more faster. So I go to the next one, which is about earnings model. What is earnings model, dosto? It's all about, saying where the money is going to come from. And I think no way better than to explain this way. Show me the money. Kahan se paisa aayega? So this is all about, dosto, trying to tell the investor what are the revenue sources. How do you ensure that you will become profitable, at least at a unit level? You may not be at an EBITDA level, operating profit level, but at least at a unit level. What is unit you're selling? You have a cost, and at least at that gross margin, the gross profit, are you profitable at least at that level? Probably uske baad you have got marketing overheads, you have got other expenses, but at least when you're manufacturing or when you're servicing, the selling price and your own direct cost, if you subtract, is there a profit? Agar usi mein bhi nahi hai, तो क्या हो सकता है? So one of the reasons why Zomato got listed is that compared to Swiggy, in their draft red herring prospectus, they were able to demonstrate saying that at a unit contribution level, they were profitable. So it's a loss making, but at a unit contribution level, they were profitable. Also explained in the slide, the funding needs. What is the dilution that is going to be there? Why am I discussing this? Because in the first I said story. Now we have moved away from story. Story has to be powerful, has to be unique, but we all know that actions speak louder than words. Showing is better than saying. Showcase the progress. You got to tell them that how you will sell, how you will close the customers, because ideas are commodities, but execution is not. I always tell the startups that it is not in the power of ideas that success lies. It is always in the power of execution. How good you are with your execution will give you more marks than how good is your idea. And therefore, ensure that you ask this question: how do we make money? What's our pricing? Have we tested that this monetization, this selling price that we are going to charge the customer, it works? That's why there's a term called early adopters. The early adopters as customers, which we also call as lighthouse customers. Why? Because they're able to give us direction whether it will work or not. Early adopters, they're willing to adopt it early. Lighthouse customers, they're willing to give you direction that this can work. And I think that's a great credibility to products and services. How much revenue has been generated or will be generated? Is there willingness to pay? Oh, that last question is very, very important. This is about your earnings model. And therefore, let me, make this important statement. Investors, they don't put money into their ideas. The ideas of a startup. They only put money into the business because business is all about execution. Dhanda is all about execution. Yes, you can have a great idea, but unless there is execution skill set, nobody's going to put the money. And therefore, your financial model, we are all CAs, we understand and appreciate financial model, but that's a real business plan because it has to explain what are the revenues, the profits, kahan se cash, aane wala hai, what is actually the cash need, how are you going to have and construct your team, which is called the hiring plan. And of course, a very, very common terminology in the world of startup, what's your burn rate? How much cash are you burning because you're not able to have enough revenues? And therefore, if you're raising cash, tab tak wo honga, which is called the runway or the cash outlay. So when I'm speaking about the earnings model, it's always about your business model. Now, this is an example of Buffer. Buffer is actually a popular software. It's an application, software application. And what they do is they help you better manage on the social media platform. For example, if you're there on Facebook or Twitter, they help you analyze your results of your marketing campaign. And look at the business model that they have. It's a freemium model, which means you come free. But then if you need certain extra services, there is a paid service. And in their case, the conversion is 2%. Now, to my knowledge, whenever a startup has got the freemium model, anything up to 6% is a great conversion, dosto. So don't look at 2%, kuch bhi nahi hai, nahi. Anything up to 6% is a great conversion in the world of apps which have a freemium model. And then they look at the churn rate. What is churn rate? Customers leaving. They look at something called LTV, the lifetime value of customer. And look at even the last statement. Our business model to say that with 1 million users, our projected revenue will be even $3.6 million. Let's take another example. So this is an example of Gleamer. That's a car wash app. And the whole idea of showing this example is to say that a very simple monetization strategy as a business model. We only take 15% as a transaction fee, which means we don't do any of the service. We have got our partners. The partners are called detailers who actually do the real car wash. So if I charge $75 to a customer, I only pick up 15%, 85% I give to them. That straight 15% is my monetization, my revenue. Simple, no complication. YouTube always had, revenues via advertising. And look at the other streams, they were even charging members if they wanted a premium feature. They were charging viewers if they wanted a premium content. What I'm saying is that be extremely clear about your earnings model, because your earnings model is going to make a huge differentiation. We come to the third one in that persistent, which is called risk. And risk is all about trying to understand, is the product or service going to be accepted? What about the payment delays? But also I'm going to speak about competition, because that to me is of paramount importance. So you have to understand whether there is direct competition, indirect competition. For example, I always say there could be substitutes. The best example is if I'm having, let's say, water. Okay, this is water, dosto, not coffee or tea. The best substitute for water, is your Coke or Pepsi. Sorry, it's rather the other way around. The best substitute for Coke or Pepsi is your water, because many people would prefer a water rather than a Coke or Pepsi because they don't want aerated drinks, or probably some of these healthy juices which are coming. 100% natural juice. Probably no, they could be the real active, and all that. What I'm saying is look at substitutes. What are the alternatives? That is called the substitute. What are their strength and weakness? Which means, are you monitoring? Are you keeping a tab of the competition? How large are these players? Do you understand the revenue size? Do they truly understand what's the sort of funding that they have received? Why I'm saying this, if you're a startup, your attitude to understand and appreciate competition will put a big plus to the investors in their minds. Because if you appreciate competition, hame lagenga, oh, this startup, this entrepreneur, these founders, they truly want to understand what the competition is, and therefore they want to create a distinctive mark by finding their own space. So whenever you do a competition, this is a very simple, I call it as a brand chart. So there are two axes. Okay, where you can have your way of understanding how you're differentiated. For example, if it is Airbnb, it's either affordable versus expensive versus online versus offline. This is one of the ways by which you can do your competition mapping. So this is another example. So if this is you, less expensive, more convenient, less convenient, that's the way you can do the brand map. But also more than this, my preference is this. Why am I saying this? Because this gives you that ability to mark yourself or rank yourself against so many different parameters. And I think that's helpful. And you don't have to put cross for the ones that's not applicable, because the slide will look messy. So keep it neat. Jahan bhi aapka hai, aap dal dena. Jahan bhi nahi hai, don't put a cross or anything. Just keep it simple. The other approach which I also like is this chart. So this is a chart which is like the small pie charts or ideograms. The actual name for them is called Harvey balls, because Harvey had created them. And this also tells how you can differentiate yourself, or how you can show how you're uniquely placed against the competition. So what I'm saying in the world of competition is your attitude to understand and appreciate is something that we investors, we appreciate big time. Let's move to the size of the market. I love this because it's all about understanding how fast you can grow. In fact, what is a startup? A startup definition is very simple. How quickly can you grow? Otherwise, you're not a startup, because there are so many MSMEs which are still, like a startup, but they're still called MSMEs or not a startup because probably they're not growing faster. And if you have in India 63 unicorns, of which almost 26 came in this year, 2021. If you look at their, sort of growth levels, or some of them have, grown much more faster. In fact, I think if I write there is more, it's not 60, it's 64, because one of them has grown, in just 2 years to become a unicorn. So therefore, so I forgot the name. So, I think Venkat was trying to put the name. Venkat, you can unmute yourself. Not able to unmute. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. No? So in just 2 years, they become a unicorn. So what I'm saying is the size of the market is a very, 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 very important slide. Extremely important. Apna, you're right, Venkat, apna. So what is important here? Not to exaggerate. अरे यार अभी आपने बताया कि size of the market बहुत important है, and now you're saying don't exaggerate. Let me explain to you, my dear friends, what I mean by this. See, we all know this terminology from the world of startup, TAM, SAM, SOM, the target addressable market, the serviceable available market, the serviceable obtainable market, the TAM, SAM, SOM. I also love this, but actually what I love more is the last one. From the SOM, if you can actually say what is going to be your market share, I think that's very important. What I mean by that is in the next 3 to 5 years, आपका top line, आपका revenue क्या होने वाला है? That's very, very important when it comes to this market slide. Let me give an example so that I'm making myself clear. So let's take this example. For example, we are looking at an IT spending market. And just for the heck of numbers, let's say the enterprise solution within that only contributes 12% of the total IT spending market, which is like 3.7 trillion. And therefore, the enterprise solution is only 450 billion. And let's say we are in enterprise solution as an example. So the target addressable market is 450 billion. And the numbers are saying that within that, the serviceable available market is only 125 billion. Within that, the serviceable obtainable market is only 125 million. What are these terms, dosto? Let's say I'm running a business called ANOVA. ANOVA can't say that the entire world, the universe, is the target addressable market because I'll be stupid. Number one, I'm a boutique investment banker. I've got the large giants out there. Second, travel could be a constraint. Forget the COVID situation. Even in a not COVID situation, travel could be a constraint. More importantly, language could be a barrier. Do I understand Spanish if I have to go to Latin America or, let's say, some other language there? If I go to Asia Pacific and let's say they speak Mandarin, will I understand? I think we have to be sensible when we speak about the target addressable market. What is a market that we can actually is available to us and we can service called the SAM? And within that, what we obtain is very, very important out of that available because, for example, let's say I say that I can service the whole of India because whole of India probably is easier for me to travel, nothing. But then look at this. Can I go to some of the places where I don't understand the language? I don't understand the culture. Maybe there are no startups. There are no M&As happening. Will I go to Northeast? So what I'm trying to tell you is that even within that serviceable available market, you have to see what is obtainable. And from that SOM, dosto, when I speak about this market share, that small, sort of pie, that is what I mean here. Example, if $125 million is the serviceable obtainable market, what is it that I can do in the next 3 years? And now in this example, we said we can probably get to 10% top line. So that 12.5 million is my milestone. That's how you explain your market share slide. Why am I saying this? I'm going to go back to, this wording out there. A lot of people tell me, sir, even if I get 1% of the market share, you know how big I can be? Oh, that's a useless statement, dosto. If someone tells me 0.1%, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, because I call this as a top-down approach. And top-down approach is never, never healthy. You have to do something called the bottom. Now we come to innovation. So what is innovation? Innovation is all about saying, how are we different? For example, if you are a technology business, how well we have our algorithms, or let's say the AI ML, that's working. Sometimes the deep learning, sort of methodology that we may have. How painless is the process for the customer? Do we have gamification to make it, much more curious? Because more than customers, if you have repeat customers, that makes the business sticky. It's called stickiness factor. What about the design itself? That's why they say UX, UI, right? The user interface. The design has to be great so that it attracts consumers, to the platform. If it's an app, it must be simple. It must not get stuck. Of course, we spoke about the intellectual property. And of course, can you also ensure that there is an unorganized market, but you're able to organize it? A lot of players are doing even in the retail segment, because even in India, as of now, probably 15% is organized retail, still 85% is unorganized, but still, there are startups who are trying to do this. Look at the digitization that is happening even at a microfinance level. Of course, the government could have, brought, all those efforts, but still I see that cash is prevalent. But then there are a lot of startups who are trying to undo this cash by coming up with a technology, which means there is unstructured, but they're trying to make it structured. And therefore, it's all about how can you demonstrate that you're different? How do you, show your moat? Your moat could be your IP. Your moat could be your design. Your moat could be probably someone like a serial entrepreneur. Probably you've done it before, or probably you've got a co-founder who already has a significant knowledge. Probably there's a high switching cost. That could be a moat. All that, explains how innovative you are. I move to my next one, which is all about scalability, a very, very famous word in the world of investors, which means how are you reaching your customers? And therefore, how quickly can you create a big customer size? Which means what's your distribution strategy? What's your channel strategy? What's your key partnership? Simple. What's your plan for growth? How do you go to the market? Simple answer is, kaise customers aane wale hai? How are you going to ensure that you have done everything to get those customers? That's why, you've got all this, PR campaigns or, contest, what Dream11, constantly does, or even Credo does, or let's say, business development activities, your direct marketing, your SEO, which is your search engine optimization, referral programs, affiliate programs, or blogging. And of course, email. And the latest one, which I'm hearing in a big way, is your influencer marketing. You've got your macro influencers, micro influencers, nano influencers. Kahan ja raha hai yaar ye duniya, So I think digital, is taking in a big way, and probably even the offline marketing itself is becoming much more cuter. So what is this thing about scalability? How can we grow? And therefore, one of the pillars is your marketing and your sales strategy to acquire customers. On the online, you've got your SEM, which is your search engine optimization, or maybe SEO. Your SEM is your search engine marketing. Your SEO, which is your search engine optimization, or your SMM, which is your social media marketing. A lot of people are getting into this in a big way. And as I work with startups, even I've started asking questions. Which is your agency, or do you have an expert within your team? Look at all that. Do you have a referral program? What about volume discount, loyalty discount? What about incentive program even for your own employees? All that is the way by which you can attract the customers. That's your marketing and sales effort. But look at the next pillar, dosto. How do you ensure that you keep your customers happy? The satisfaction index. In the world of technology, it's called NPS, your net promoter score. Because that can lead you to your customer satisfaction index. What is important is that, do you have a dedicated team, the customer service team, which gets feedback on a constant basis? Do you have a community program? So one of the things I like about brands today is that, they're creating communities. I was surprised when I heard Boat that they have communities. They call them as Boatians or something, I'm so excited when I hear that these guys are doing these communities, because that probably helps them a lot more to get feedback. See, I spoke about early adopters. I spoke about lighthouse customers. These are your evangelists. And the third pillar is very, very important, dostum, because if you're not actively engaged with the customer, with your service offerings or product offerings, which are innovative or at least improvements, it's very difficult to stay alive. And therefore, what is important is that how well you engage with the customer, even in the form of new products or something even you want to experiment. That's why even in an app, they upgrade by coming up with a new version or maybe some new features. Even on the website, they keep, developing that just to ensure that, they're able to connect with the customers in a big way. What I'm saying is that scalability is very, very important aspect of understanding how well, you can attract investment from the investors. So in this context, I want to share about the business model canvas. I'm sure many of you would have heard of it. I have personally experienced that when you're true to the BMC, it actually helps you understand how you can scale better, because you understand how do you actually reach to your customer, the channels, how do you maintain the relationship, because your first choice is segmenting them. And therefore you'll segment them only when you truly understand how am I unique? What is my value proposition? How am I differentiated? And when you do this, you will truly understand what sort of partnership I need to have, what sort of resources I need to ensure that I'm putting in place, what sort of tie-ups I need to have. And that leads to your revenue at a cost model. And I'm not bothered if the revenues are not there or the revenues are small in the beginning. I think it's all about trying to understand that, am I able to get that scalability by at least attracting customers? And therefore, if you are a technology business, I think looking at daily average users, weekly average users, monthly average users, I think that becomes of paramount importance. And even otherwise, if you approach, a business by doing a lot of sampling, I think you can always get a feedback. For example, a lot of food and beverage business, a lot of this cosmetic brands, beauty brands, they do sampling. The whole idea of sampling is to have that engagement and probably converting them into real customers. Now we move to a very, very important aspect. I'm sure all of you know that team stands for together everyone achieves maximum. We all know that. But those I have a slightly different flavor to add here. I always say that the meaning of team is we're not a team because we work together. I'll repeat that. I always say that we are not a team because we work together. We are a team because we respect, we trust, we challenge, and we care for each other. The reason I'm saying this, dosto, is that as you're starting your business, your enterprise, or you want to get into entrepreneurship, it's not necessary that you will find people who are as capable as you are. And this is a big problem for a founder or entrepreneur. The frustration is, mere jaisa nahi hai. Arey, mere jaisa hai to clone karna padega na. So how do you ensure that you're able to have these people alongside you, you work with them, but you're able to create a mutual respect, a trust, a cohesiveness. That to me is called team. And this is where it's all about the founder market fit, and therefore even the team comes into equation, because within that team, obviously we know that 3 or 4 people will be extremely key people. In fact, most of the startups have got very lean team. Hardly 4 members, 5 members, maybe maximum some 11, 12 members. So ensuring that we are able to build a team is very, very important. I also want to pass on the message that as investors, when we look at a founding team, we're looking at their pedigree. Now by pedigree, I don't necessarily mean IIT, IIM, Ivy League. What is pedigree? Pedigree is what is your ability to understand that domain? What effort have you even put to tell me that a problem hai, you've understood that problem, it's large, and therefore the solution that you're offering can be executed. If you have a past experience, oh, that's great, because that gives us that confidence much more quickly. Agar nahi hai to, are you coachable? Are you teachable? That's very, very important. More importantly, have you put skin in the game? Rather than asking me money, what is it that you have done? Have you gone to your friends and family even to raise that money? What is it that you have done to give me the confidence that you're doing enough? You're putting your own, monies to see. That's what we call as bootstrap, right? Agar aapne you khud ka paisa dala, it's called bootstrap. Or probably you can raise money from your friends and family because they'll trust you, they'll believe in you. That we want to see. In terms of the team, we're looking at the energy level. Let's say when it matters the most, can you collectively go ready to make it big? That's what we want to see. And more importantly, of course, as a founding team, we want to understand your leadership skill, your hiring skill, the clarity of the thought, the business acumen. And of course, if you're a single founder, don't worry, what we call a solopreneur, the only thing that we want to ensure is that you have a second line. Because if you don't have the second line, that will scare us. They'll make us feel that the dependency is completely on that one man, and a one-man show is a dangerous show. I know that one man could be a key person, but a one-man show is a dangerous show. That's why in some of the startups you have even become unicorn, you'll be surprised that एक ही founder बात कर रहा है, like the spokesman or the spokesperson. But trust me, they have co-founders. Ritesh Agarwal of Oyo, he's like the poster boy. But trust me, he's not the only person out there. They have a co-founding team. Similarly, some of the other startups, I don't want to name them, but if you go and, research, you'll understand. The whole idea about this slide, dosto, is can you exploit, can you explore, can you jump to hyper growth? Because startup is all about how quickly can you grow? Can you demonstrate that to us? So remember, one, cohesiveness. The mutual respect is very, very important. Second is your domain expertise, pedigree, energy levels, your ability to actually ensure that you're ready to go when that moment happens. And therefore, when we discuss about a team slide, keep it simple. If you can, have your nice photos, keep it, simple. Explain your background. For example, your career, in terms of where you have worked, or, if you have just started fresh, nothing wrong. You can even say that. Okay, but more importantly, dosto, this slide is very important. Forget the names and all that. The last piece, it says, that we are backed by an amazing team. So you don't say that you are the person You always say, I'm not a one-man guy. I'm not a small team of co-founders. We are backed by a battalion. And now it says 40 plus, even if it is 5 or 6 or 10, doesn't matter, dosto. The whole idea is to say that you are a right mix of passion and experience. That's what this team will help you. So one of the concerns I have, in startup world is they always speak about who are the founders. Acha sa image, acha sa background. And then they say, there are, some 10 people. But why not, even have their photos? Why not even say, you have an unfair access to the pool of an excellent team here? I think that matters a lot. So the whole idea about this slide again is to tell you that can you even ensure that you're able to showcase your team, not every member, but at least some. And I'll add one more. If you have an ESOP scheme, or trust me, that gives greater confidence to investor. What is ESOP? Employee Stock Option Plan. Why does that give the confidence? Of course, you'll not give it to everybody. You'll give it to select few, but that gives us the confidence that the founding team has got greater comfort with some of these team members. Now we move to entry barrier. And when I speak about entry barrier, dosto, I want to speak about unfair advantage. What is unfair advantage? Probably you have, money, you have a pot because you come from a wealthy background, or maybe you've got friends and family, which are able to trust you more, or probably there is something which is insightful. Maybe the location is an advantage, so that comes as a luck. Or maybe the sort of expertise and education that you carry gives you that pedigree to even approach the investors or the investor community much more easily. Or maybe the status because you're a serial entrepreneur and therefore people know you. Dosto, in simple terms, what is unfair advantage? This slide. And I'm sure you understand what I mean by this slide. So what is unfair advantage? Let me quickly explain some of the examples. So as a founder, are you one of the top 10 or the top 15 guys? For example, if you look at Zerodha or Freshworks, if you look at Zerodha, the Kamath brothers, Nitin and Nikhil, or let's say Freshworks, Girish, or the way they are able to speak about the opportunity, speak about the business, explain about how well they are supported by the team is unbelievable. They don't just speak about themselves. They always speak about the team, how they're very focused on the customer service. More importantly, if I have to make this statement, again, they're not from Ivy League. None of them from IIT or IIMs. So one of the things that I want to share with you is that never get carried away by the fact that no, you have to come from an Ivy League. No, it doesn't matter at all. Of course, it does help in certain cases. I'm not saying it does not help. It does help. For example, there are certain investors, who are backed, by certain Ivy League institutions. There is Stanford, which will have the Stanford Angel Investor. You've got INSEAD. INSEAD would have its own, set of, angel investors or maybe even a venture capital fund backed. So I'm not undermining that, but I also want to tell you that, it's not that you have to be that, to become a startup. Second is the market. We always speak about the CAGR, the compounded annual growth rate. So how quickly are you growing? Is it 20%? Is it 30%? All that matters a lot. And look at some of the examples. Why is Baiju a decacorn that is more than a $10 billion valuation? Simple. Because the way they have grown, nobody else has. If I'm right, they're a $16 billion valuation as of now, and they are the largest edtech in the world, in the universe. We're not speaking about India, dosto, in the universe. So I want to give an example to say that no, an unfair advantage is all about how will you differentiate it. In case of product, is it 10x better? See, for example, Google Chrome is always considered 10x better than Firefox. If I have to speak about Google, we had Yahoo, we had Lycos, we had Alta Vista. I don't know, some of you can understand the names I'm telling you because you're pretty young. But in my days, we had Yahoo. But Yahoo was the first mover, but still could not make it bigger because Google was 10x better. Before Instagram, there was Flickr. There was something called TwigPic, all my jamanas for mobile sharing photo. But the way Instagram is, nobody is. Why? 10x better. So also what I'm saying is, can you ensure that you're better than the competition? That's the whole mantra. In terms of acquisition, how do you ensure that your cost of acquisition is lower? Your word of marketing, plays a big role. And similarly, can you even demonstrate some monopoly? What is monopoly? For example, look at, Oyo. After Oyo, if I have to take names, probably I can take some names like Tribo and Fab, your Fab hotels, but they're not as big as Oyo. I still remember when WhatsApp had issues on the privacy, they spoke about some Signal, okay? Tell me, even I downloaded Signal, but use nahi karta yaar. Thankfully, WhatsApp has, thanks to Facebook, they have also changed some rule. Telegram. I mean, I'm not against Telegram, but I'm not comfortable. WhatsApp is LinkedIn. Probably there are other, business emails, or social platforms, but LinkedIn, the way, it has created that monopoly. This is, all examples of your unfair advantage. Okay, so now we come to an interesting concept called niche. Not many of us can have niche, but what is this niche? It's all about focus in a segment. How different are you? For example, if there is a large, segment, are you trying to be someone, who is very limited within that? For example, it could be minimal competition because the way you're operating, or it could be a high profit, sort of a brand or a business, or maybe you're able to solve a problem which is much more differentiated than the others. The others are also doing it, but the way you do it, nobody does. For example, Apple phone is still Apple phone. Version 13 will come, 14 will come. You still have, competition from Samsung and others, Xiaomi and others, but Apple is Apple. Kuch to alag se dikhta hai, okay? So what I'm saying is that, examples probably would include in the current world, Ayurvedic herbal products, which are very, very niche. These days we hear something called natural, called clean beauty. From a milk angle, people are speaking about almond milk, wheat, milk taken out of wheat. All unbelievable. They're all niche. For example, when it comes to CSR activities, the corporates do, there are certain startups who assess the impact. It's called as M&E, monitoring and evaluating. That's niche. What I'm saying is that not many will have it, but I still want to explain to you that even this could be interesting. And finally, dosto, we come to the last one, which is about traction. This is a very, very important aspect. Yes, I spoke about the earnings, you have to show your earnings, but what is traction? Traction is all about telling what have you done. It can be in the form of a milestone in terms of what have you achieved. It can be a list of those evidences that are suggesting that, yes, you have done it. So it's all about achievements, about how you have gained certain insights post the launch of your either app or your business. What is, those very, very critical metrics, that matter a lot to you? How has been, this growth driven? And more importantly, where is the stickiness factor? How is it working? Which means traction is all about your growth, the change that you're bringing in, revenue growth or customer acquisition or product development. Every time it need not be revenue, because I'm sure some of you would maybe pre-revenue. Doesn't matter. So long you have customer acquisition or customer acquisition strategy, that could even be interesting to investors. Look at Cred. Hardly any revenues. Look at Khata Book, zero revenue, but almost a $600 million valuation, because look at the customer base that they have, all Kiranas. So the whole idea is, how do you show the context of your journey and what is possible? What have you done it? That is what all about traction. But I want to explain a couple of important terms here, dosto. There's something called vanity metrics. I don't know whether you've heard of it. Vanity metrics is all dikhava. It makes you feel good, but does not help with decisions. Example kya hai? I have seen startups who tell me, sir, you know how many app downloads we have? How many Twitter followers we have? How many Facebook likes we have? How many website visitors we have? Oh, it doesn't excite me at all. You know what excites me? What excites me is, what's your conversion rate? What's your retention rate? What is your customer lifetime value? What is your average revenue per customer? What is, your churn rate? What is your new user acquisition rate? Whatever I just said, dosto, is called actionable metric. I used a term called vanity metric, which is dikhava. Now I'm using a word called actionable metric, because these are specific. These are repeatable. These can be observed. And this is what I want to say, that if you can work on certain actionable metrics, well, trust me, investors can get super excited. On that note, I want to show you some example of tractions. For example, look at this, 1,000+ users, 8 enterprise clients, profitable within 5 months of launch. Wow, kitna acha lagta hai. Organic, SEO growth. Amazing way to even explain what are you doing with your business. What is traction? Traction is simply explaining the growth or the change. Look at this. This is again an interesting example. We have 800 paying customers. Our annual revenue, what you call as ARR, annual recurring revenue. That's $150,000. User growth per month. That's why I keep telling you, can you measure your monthly average users? What's your growth rate? And of course, this is an example of, buffer as an example. That's why, they look at their buffer rate also. So on that note, I conclude with what I call as persistent, how we can come up with a pitch deck. And if you can remember this, or trust me, I think you'll be able to, do a much more fantastic job on the pitch deck. If you ask me, is an order to the madness of a pitch deck? Some say there is an order. I never say there's an order. But I think the very first important aspect is start with the problem statement. That's very important. Then probably you can even go to the team. You can, share the others. But for me, start with the problem. And then, you can use any of the order. But if you want to remember about pitch deck, this is the word I want to leave with you. On that note, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think we can conclude the session. And I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Shekhar for joining us despite his busy schedule, and to all of you for contributing to the success of today's session. I would further like to thank my fellow teammates, Vishal, Tanmay, Divyanshi, Venkat, Sagar, and Reshal for working behind the scenes tirelessly. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was indeed an insightful session. Thank you.